This one is for the non-technical folks out there. Engineers, I hope this is up to your standards. So I get a question a lot from folks who are not technical that is basically, what can I do to become more technical? People are rightly concerned that their long-term career prospects are affected by how technical they are able to go. Everyone has a bottom out on technicality, right? Like even engineers will not go all the way to the silicon, almost. Like there's probably a couple that do, but for the most part, everyone has a bottom to their technical fluency swimming pool. Like you swim down there and that's the end of it. The question for most folks who are non-technical is, how deep do I need to get from a technical point of view to drive my career, and what can I do to get there? And I am here to suggest to you that how deep you need to get is not a super relevant question. So let's put that one aside. And the reason why is because you can always get more technical. And that is pretty much always advantageous if you do. And so I think the better answer is, are you on a learning curve? Are you on a path where you are getting more technical over time? And how do you put yourself on that path? Our lives are made up of trajectories. Our lives are made up of habits. And that is true for our careers as much as our personal lives. And so if you are in a habit of being non-technical, the real question that will drive your career is, can you shift that habit set so you are more technical than you were before? So you actually are starting to become more technical over time. It becomes a growth curve. Okay. With that introduction in mind, I want to give you 10 ways to become more technical if you are not a technical person. And these are super practical. I've looked at all of these. I've done like almost all of these myself. And I found them super helpful. I did not used to be as technical as I am. I'm sure that in 5 or 10 years, I will be more technical than I am now. And that is what I want. I want to be on a growth curve. Okay. So number one, get an engineer to whiteboard for you. This was super useful when I was trying to understand system design in some of my earlier PM roles. If you have the opportunity to sit down and have someone whiteboard for you, and yes, they can use an iPad, right? And do that remotely if you work remotely, or in person. If you're in person, just get a room, get a whiteboard, start to draw it out. Now, if you're like, oh, well, the engineers are not going to listen to me, right? Like they're not going to give me the time of day. I have news for you, and it's called YouTube. There are more engineering whiteboard videos than I can shake a stick at on YouTube. It's ridiculous how many there are. Now, a lot of them are couched in terms of how you answer questions from an engineering perspective, but I've got news for you. They're using real examples. They're using examples to sort of walk through how you think as an engineer in whiteboard, and that is a skill that a non-technical person can learn and become more technical in. Because at the end of the day, whiteboarding is just logical thinking on the board, drawing out a system. And it is really useful to understand how that works, because a lot of the questions that you get asked in non-technical roles amount to logical thinking about technical systems. So if you can understand whiteboarding a little bit, you're going to be that much ahead. Okay, number two, start scripting with ChatGPT. And I'm going to give you a really practical way to do this. If you use email, if you use Calendar, and you're using Google for those, you have a built-in place to start scripting with ChatGPT. You can use ChatGPT to build JavaScript that you can then run right away in the scripting environment that Google has set up for running operations on email and Calendar. As an example, you can use ChatGPT to help you build a script that counts the number of meetings, averages the meeting minutes, and gives you a running average over time, or a report over time of how you are doing at managing your meeting time. Now, that may be very depressing for you if you're in a lot of meetings. But that being said, the point is that you can build the script really quickly. You can read the code and start to understand what it's doing. And you can apply it and learn from it. And I'm a big believer in that try and apply loop, where like you learn something by doing. And I think that that works a lot with technical stuff, because you have to be able to try it to see that it works. And once you see that it works, you'll see the utility, you'll see the value in a practical way, and you'll try something else. And so the nice thing about that Google scripting environment is there's no end to the kinds of things you can do. It will also do email operations. If you want to automatically reply to your aunt with a particular line every time she sends an email, not that I recommend this, this is not great for family, but you could do that. There's basically no end to what you can do creatively. And I think that's one of the cool things about code. Okay, so number 2 is scripting, and I gave you that example in Google. There's other ways, of course, you can do scripting as well. Number 3, build a tiny app. I actually know someone who has been building tiny apps using the Poe.com platform, POE, like the poet. And they're doing it in minutes instead of days. Like, they basically are able to chat with Poe and put an app together very, very quickly. Now, is this a super sophisticated app? Not really. Is it an app that shows a proof of concept? Absolutely. And so one of the other things that you want to do is you want to leverage the power of large language models to shorten the learning loop and basically say, this is what I can do now because I can use plain English to express my thoughts logically. And you can start to see under the surface, like the LLM is going to be translating your plain English into specific coding commands to build a program. Now, you can also do this with other large language models, right? I know that Claude 3.5 has a very good reputation for coding at the moment. There will be others as well that are coming down the pike soon, right? You wait a day, you have a new sort of coding tool to use. But the point is this: keep experimenting and keep seeing if you can build things quickly. And I think what I like about Poe.com is it makes the journey to building an app really fast. And you want to accelerate that learning loop so you can express something that you think is logical and then see how the LLM misinterprets it. And that may give you more sympathy for engineers who do not understand your product requirements if you are a PM. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4, read the technical documents at work, even if you don't fully understand them. I think that's really important. You want to get to a point where you're reading them, and then by next year you're reading them, and you understand about 10%, 15%, 20% more. That's a really big deal. Like, if you start to get to a point where you can consistently understand over time how you think in technical terms in your own system that you work against, it's this entire level up for your career at work. So read those technical documents that you know exist in your wiki, in your Notion, wherever your organization keeps them. Read up. And you might be telling me, hey, I don't have technical documents to read right now. Maybe they're locked away. Maybe you're not in that kind of role. Maybe you're looking to break into tech. That's fine. Read the Netflix tech blog. It's free. It's available to the public. I cannot believe they do that. It is an astonishing repository of technical knowledge. I still go back there and read it. It's a wonderful thing to discover because you can look at anything from how they construct large networks to how they do A/B testing at scale to how they understand how to recognize content in videos at scale. Phenomenal blog. Highly recommend the Netflix tech blog. And there are other good technical blogs out there. I don't want to just call them out, but I will say for me, reading and learning from the Netflix tech blog was very formative. Like, it was super helpful to understand sort of how they think about systems at scale, because you can often reason down from a scale of hundreds of millions of customers to something smaller, but it's difficult to go the other way. Okay, number 6. This takes courage. Say something badly and then invite engineers to correct you. I vividly remember a moment earlier in my career when I confused webhooks and APIs. And I was corrected, and rightly so. And that was very, very good for me because that's how I internalized a nuance that I hadn't fully internalized before. And so one of the things that I want to call out is that if you aren't willing to be wrong, it is very difficult to learn. So if you cultivate a willingness to be wrong at work and show a willingness to improve, learn, have a great attitude, and grow, it's going to help you grow a lot faster. And that's probably a general hack, frankly. It's probably not just for tech, but I'm applying it here. Okay. Number 7, ask someone who is not an engineer, but who is more technical than you to explain a concept to you. And by the way, if you would like me on this YouTube channel to explain a technical concept for non-technical people, that's basically me at this point. Like, I'm a fairly technical product person, and so I'd be happy to do that. Please, in the comments, let me know what you would like me to explain. I'd be happy to do that. And I think that that's helpful, right? Because at the end of the day, if a non-technical person explains it, they're often going to make sure that they are not using jargon or assuming acronyms that an engineer might assume. And so that it can be easier to sort of bridge across that gap of understanding. All right. Number 8, play around with hardware. I know Raspberry Pi was all the rage just a few years ago. I vividly remember, I do not know, this may be lost on the internet, but there was a great blog post, I think it might have been on AWS, about someone who was building a Raspberry, I think it was a Raspberry Pi based machine learning cat recognition device. And so let me explain. Like, this guy was basically, as a home project, playing around with teaching an AI to recognize his individual cat's face and to only open the cat door for his cat. And so the cat door was locked, except when the device recognized his cat's face, and then it would open the door and the cat could go in. But if another cat tried to come in, or if like a dog or a raccoon tried to come in, it wouldn't work. Now, I don't know how much value that has, other than being highly amusing, but I think that playing around with the hardware was probably really good for him, right? Like, it's a nice set of sort of practice motions to go through to build and launch something with a hardware component, because he had to both do the AI piece and the training piece, but also do the hardware actuators and actually building the door. And I think that's super fun. Okay, number 9, read the classics. And this one, maybe you don't start here, but The Pattern on the Stone. That's a classic textbook for computer science. Or The Art of Doing Science and Engineering, Learning to Learn by Hamming, another classic one. There are other ones as well. I'm not saying only read those 2 books. My point is, at some point, it's helpful to learn by reading people who have been thinking about computers for a lot longer than most of us have. And those are 2 that come to mind, but there are others as well. And then the last one, number 10, be consistently curious. And I know that that sounds like a throwaway line, but one of the things that will sustain you if you are trying to figure out how to do this over time is curiosity. And if you are able to stay curious over time about a technical subject, you will feed yourself what you need to know. You will go and find it. And so, in a sense, my last challenge to you is, if you're looking for a way in, if you're trying to find a way to be more technical, find something that makes you curious and follow that thread. Stay curious. All right. Tell me what I missed in the comments.